In search of the wild horses of the Rachel Carson Estuarine Reserve. North Carolina is home to 5 herds of wild horses. For a quick day trip to find wild horses, the Rachel Carson herd seems to be the most accessible. From the waterfront of Beaufort, a quaint coastal town, residents and visitors can often see the horses across a small waterway called Taylor Creek. The main street along this creek is called Front Street, home to many restaurants, shops, and pubs. Since the historic sections of Beaufort date back 300 years, you might also enjoy a historical walking tour of the area. As part of your day trip, we strongly suggest that you enjoy a meal along the waterfront as you scan Town Marsh for a horse sighting. The Rachel Carson Estuarine Reserve is a part of the North Carolina National Estuarine Research Reserve System. The Rachel Carson Reserve actually consists of 5 islands: Town Marsh, Carrot Island, Bird Shoal, Horse Island, and Middle Marshes, for a total of about 2,315 acres of land and water. Locals simply refer to the area as Carrot Island. The reserve is home to about 30 wild or feral horses. The Rachel Carson Reserve is a joint venture between the state of North Carolina and the federal government, NOAA. As an estuarine area, it brings together saltwater and freshwater, creating a very rich ecosystem for marine life and birds. The reserve serves as an area for preservation of the ecosystem, education, research, and recreation. The reserve offers 3 different field trips: a nature hike, a trip to the boardwalk, and a trip out to Middle Marshes on Tuesdays and Thursdays throughout the summer. It is strongly suggested that you sign up in advance for a trip. Information is available online. The horses themselves are descendants of a privately owned herd of banker ponies which a local resident kept on Town Marsh in the 1940s. They were interbred with other domestic stock, so they are slightly bigger than the banker ponies of Shackelford Banks and Corolla. Local people and wild horse enthusiasts value these animals as cultural resources. They are a huge attraction to the area. The horses are owned and managed by the Rachel Carson Reserve under the authority of the state of North Carolina. The office of the reserve is not located on any of the 5 islands, but on the mainland nearby. There are actually no facilities anywhere on the reserve, so visitors must bring supplies and food with them. Likewise, responsible visitors take their trash back out with them. The reserve is managed by a small staff, including a biological technician who is directly responsible for the management of the horses. The technician checks on the horses several times a week, monitoring health, birth rate, and mortality. In the summer, when the number of visitors rise, she makes daily trips to the reserve. At all times, she maintains detailed notes on each horse. She knows the names of every horse, and when new foals arrive, she lets personnel from the reserve offer name suggestions. As of June 2018, there were 14 stallions, 18 mares, forming 5 different bands. The oldest horse was 28 years old, and the youngest horse was 1 month old. Locals delight in the arrival of newborn colts and fillies, especially when seen from Front Street. For the health of the horses and the health of the ecosystems, the state limits the size of the herd to 30. If numbers exceed this amount, the technician darts certain mares with the contraceptive called PZP. This is used with other wild herds. Since 1985, when the Rachel Carson Reserve began, larger herds of horses were roaming the islands and were suffering when there was not enough food and water to sustain them. Since these horses can easily be observed from the mainland, even the public could see when the horses became malnourished and sickly. At one point, the North Carolina Division of Marine Fisheries helped the situation by delivering 20 bales of hay per week. This, however, was not sustainable and warranted serious discussions about herd management. Through meetings with the scientific community and through public hearings, it was agreed that the islands could adequately support a herd not to exceed 30. This has worked well since 1988. So how does one find these remarkable horses? In some ways it is easy, in other ways it is tricky. Because there are 5 islands, it is possible to sight horses at a great distance, but tides and marsh mud can make it difficult to get closer. It is optimal if you can visit at low tide because the whole area becomes more accessible. The horses, though, have no problems wading and swimming where they want to go. We do have several suggestions, though, to help you find them. There are several waterfront ferry services, including a tour company that cruises along Taylor Creek to find the wild horses. Island Ferry Adventures will take visitors to 3 different points: the trailhead on Town Marsh, the Long Beach known as Bird Shoal, and to the Tower area, which is a point near the watering holes on Town Marsh. This same ferry company offers a 90-minute tour of the area by reservation only. The cost is very inexpensive and definitely worth the time. During this tour, the boat allows passengers to disembark on the boardwalk on Carrot Island for a short hike into the interior of that island. Currently, one band of horses frequents this island because a possessive stallion likes to keep his mares secluded. Now, private boaters and kayakers, of course, can put ashore anywhere. Could a person swim across? It is not a great distance, perhaps 100 yards, but it does have a strong current, making it less than safe. Depending upon a person's strength, a swimmer might find himself much further downstream than anticipated. Let's talk further about disembarking at the 3 drop-off points of this particular ferry service. First, let's start with the trailhead drop-off. The ferry service will give you a map, which is a publication of the Rachel Carson Reserve. It is an interpretive guide explaining what is significant at each trail marker. The main trail is a large loop, referred to as the outer loop, with blue markers around the western portion of Town Marsh. You will note that this trail splits to the left, creating another trail that bisects the loop, referred to as the inner loop. Either trail is about a mile in length. Horses definitely roam this area. We recommend doing the outer loop trail at low tide because parts of it are underwater as the tide rises. The inner loop trail, marked as the green trail, traverses across high ground. At marker 13 on the inner loop and marker 12 on the outer loop, there are signs which point to Bird Shoal. It is possible to cross over here. At low tide, you would cross on solid ground, and at high tide, you would walk through up to 12 inches of water. This area is a safe area to cross over, but be warned that marsh mud makes most areas between the islands treacherous to cross. Both people and horses can sink in this soft and deep mud. Bird Shoal is a sandbar about 1.5 miles in length, and the ferry drops off passengers on the far west end. The horses roam around all the islands, but Bird Shoal is a favorite in the summer when they seek breezes to keep cool and to keep the bugs away. The Long Beach is a popular place for people to set up beach chairs. Visitors can swim, fish, and search for shells. It is a great spot to find sand dollars. From Bird Shoal, it is possible to look over to Town Marsh. If horses are on this side of the island, they can be spotted. The watering holes on Town Marsh are also visible from Bird Shoal. Remember though, it is perilous to cross this marsh environment except where you can see marker 12 on the outer loop trail, which would be far to the left or west of the watering holes. Once with binoculars, we spotted horses way off to our right or east. We crossed back over to Town Marsh near marker 12, walked up the hill, and then veered to our right or east. We were able to get closer to them, and we used the tower as a guide. So let's talk about the tower. The tower, as it is known to the local folks, is directly opposite the watering holes. If you asked to be dropped off there, then you would immediately walk up a hill through dense shrub thicket. In this part of the island, there is also maritime forest with various kinds of trees and large evergreens. As you reach the top of the hill, the terrain is very spread out, and there are open areas between trees. If you immediately start walking left or east, you will miss the watering holes. You must continue walking forward with the tower at your back. Eventually, you will see an open area that curves to the left or east. It resembles a road. This open area takes you to the watering holes. Along this ridge, there is dense forest which provides the horses with good shelter. You can see areas where they like to bed down. One word of caution, though, about the watering holes. These are the main areas of fresh water for the horses, so human presence can deter them from approaching to drink or even to stop drinking. Therefore, visitors are reminded to keep a good distance away from this area, at least 50 feet. We talked with a woman who told us that she was walking through the trees in this area, and she encountered several horses who were also traveling through the trees. Now, in the open areas, visitors cannot by law get closer than 50 feet to the horses. However, in this tight, confined area, she did the appropriate maneuvers. She backed away as far as she could and did not move as they passed. There was no incident. If a horse had approached her, though, then she should have waved her arms in front of her at eye level to discourage any contact. If you ever find that horses are approaching you in the open, you should turn and make a hasty retreat to keep the proper distance. If you back away slowly with eye contact, you could actually draw them towards you. Again, you would not want to do this because they are wild animals and can bite or kick. Needless to say, never pet them, never feed them. Humans can put themselves in danger, and horses will always lose as they become acclimated to human contact. They must survive without us. As we stated earlier, the Rachel Carson Reserve is ideal for a quick trip to find wild horses. Every time we go there, we always have a different experience with them. One time we encountered a herd of 18 all napping together. Since the tide was low, we were able to get 50 feet from them for a nice photo shoot. Another time we were on Bird Shoal and we only saw 2 horses grazing over on Town Marsh. Disappointed as we were giving up our search, all of a sudden a band started crossing towards us from Town Marsh. They came out of the tree area, and then another band came quickly up from the eastern section of Bird Shoal. Right before our eyes, they started rolling. One even looked me straight in the eye, and then they were gone. Truly, searching for wild horses is a wondrous adventure.